Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Tuned and Strong podcast. That is Dr. Jen Cabas-May of Tuned and Toned Performance.
And this lovely lady over here is Angela McHouston of Music Strong. And today we are going to be chatting about the concept of serving the music in our lives as musicians, and what that tends to lead to in terms of mental and physical health. I know that's a vague way to introduce it, so we'll start unpacking it already. But there's this concept, right, when we get into music as a profession, and I see it in classical music, I see it in jazz, I see it in basically anything that you can imagine, and even throughout things like dance, visual arts, any sort of performing or arts-based thing, where we are so invested in what we do and the environment that we enter into when we're doing our professional training and when we're interacting within our field is that everything you do should serve your art, your craft, your profession. Now, in some ways, that can be good. It makes very driven people, right, who have a very focused mindset, and they don't get easily distracted by other things. But I find that a lot of us take it too far. And I say a lot of us because I was guilty of this for a long time. Serving the music that was my entire life. That was my social circle. That was my like outside activities. It's all music based or related to music people, even if it's not a music activity. That's what you spend your free time doing. That's like,
Yep.
But beyond that, your health is compromisable. Your health is secondary. Your personal life is secondary. Your mental wellness is secondary. Where you live does not matter because you need to serve the music first. And we've been doing all these conversations. I'm like, this is part of the heritage of our instruction and our training. We talk about pedigrees and stuff like that when it comes to, what schools did you go to? Because that tells you a lot about the person that you're dealing with, right? It does. It tells you
yes,
a lot of mindset that they've been raised around as a professional, et cetera. But yeah, that just kind of struck me as like, this is something that we should probably talk about because it's so impactful on the mental and physical wellness of the people that we end up working with. So
yeah, the sleep and the health is obviously first. My thought is basically,
yes.
Same with mental health. It's the pull yourself together and get it done mentality. Sometimes that's not a thing, and to ignore what else is going on in someone else's life for the sake of getting the gig done.
Yeah.
I think we're finally coming out of that a little bit. It's getting, since mental health is being, I should say, more mental wellness also.
Yes.
Yes. So I don't want to get mental health like diseases mixed up with wellness, taking care of your emotional and spiritual well-being. I think that's definitely getting more and more acceptable. Like to cancel a rehearsal or to ask for a sub or that kind of, and not feel like your job is in jeopardy, but it's not the norm.
No, it's still a really rough thing to do, even when the people that you're working with are understanding. It's that, you feel like you're putting your sub in an awkward position by like, hey, I can't, I need some help. Well, now this person has to compromise their schedule for you. And how does that reflect with the people that you were working for? Like, are you reliable or not? Same thing with injury, right? A lot of people don't want to say, oh, I'm injured or I was injured, because then the question becomes, well, are you reliable for this gig?
It's so hard to unpack in this succinct thought.
It is.
Because there's some truth to it. There's some concern and some truth to that, because if you're dealing with something and you're not given the space to deal with it, and to be fair and honest, life doesn't always give us the time and space to deal with stuff we need to deal with. I was going through like this stuff with my now ex, with just learning what schizophrenia was and what the reality of my marriage was and was not, you know, and all those things. And here I am living with my parents where I didn't intend to be, but now I've got to teach what, and all I wanted to do is run away to another place and just kind of process, and I couldn't do it. I didn't have any mental capacity so I thought, well, you know, I told people that teaching kind of saved me, but not really. It was just something I thought, okay, it can take my mind off this. It's all to do. So serving music in that aspect, because I felt the pressure to get out of my parents' house. I didn't want to be there. They didn't want me there, which was fine because it was supposed to be temporary. It turned into a lot longer situation and nobody would know about it. But, you know, I just didn't have the space and time to deal with that. And sometimes you're just not given that space and time. So you have to do what you have to do. But if you never take time or never allowed to take time, that's a bigger issue.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, there are times when you are going to have to sacrifice for life. That's just a fact. I know a lot of times we wish that wasn't true, where it's like, I mean, sometimes life does not care what you're going through. You better survive, you know, and that's okay. That's when we start needing to dip into our energy reserves. That's what they're there for. But if your entire life, everything is sacrificed to your career or your field or your art or your craft, you're going to run into some problems. You're going to run into some big problems.
Like getting your identity wrapped up in being a musician. Because what if you have an accident or you have something happen to you? It happens to people all the time. You know, you're a runner without legs, right? I was watching TikTok the other day and saw this guy had a forklift accident. It cut off his entire lower body. What? You know, I mean, things like that happen. And I'm not saying this is going to happen to you, but there's a danger to wrapping your identity up in I am only a musician.
Yes. And that only is, I think, really what we're both trying to highlight here. Because I don't really know anybody who's only one thing. I know a lot of people who unfortunately identify themselves as that, but if you know them on any real personal level, I mean, it's like you've got so much else going on, you know, like there's always something else that you have to give, and there's almost always something else that you need. And we're very much, I say raised, because really you think about it, you start in college, you're 18, 19, most people, you know, some younger, some older, but when you're starting your career path at that age, like you're really professionally raised in that environment. And it's so tough, you know?
Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, you have expectations, and college, something that I've noticed that college is, it really, you know, now that I'm on the adjunct side of it, I can really see it, especially when it's not being done, is how college sets you up to deal with real life, or should. These are the expectations. You will meet them, or there will be consequences. Period. End of story. Where things get hairy is where we. Sorry, I was thrown off product. You so beautifully threw it in there.
I literally just wanted a sip of coffee, but I do have a fancy mug now. I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, I like it. It's fancy. So yeah, like college is really good at being like, okay, this is the syllabus. Everything is laid out. It's your responsibility to read it. It is your responsibility to follow it. You don't show up, that's fine. That's on you, but you will fail. You know, and it's good at showing that. But at the other hand, music schools, why do we have to have 24 hours of classes? Why do you have to be in every single ensemble? Why do you get 1 credit for 9 hours of rehearsal a week? Unrealistic. It's insane. And it's not really, I don't think it's necessary. Not to that volume.
Yeah. And it's tough too, because talking to, when we talked to Garrett Hope a couple weeks back, talking to him and really having that side of it, because I've never been part of curriculum development, but coming at it from his perspective, I'm like, okay, what would we cut?
Mhm.
I can only think of a couple things that I'm like, this was wholly unnecessary to my career. Only a handful. And unfortunately, it was not the 1-credit classes.
No, it's not.
So the requirements are still high, and like we're in a demanding field. You want to get out in
Mhm.
4 years, and if you want to get out in 4 years, it really should be. By the way, I'm a huge advocate 5-year undergrad. 5-year
Oh,
undergrad. I
really?
I think a lot of people would be a lot more sane on the other end if we had a 5-year undergrad.
I liked it. You know, I took too many hours my first couple of years because I thought I was supposed to take that many. So my friends were ed majors and I was performance, and I was like, I have to take that many. And then I ended up with like 9 hours for my senior year, and I was like, I got nothing to do. So I ended up taking 2 extra PEs for fun.
You know,
It was great.
right. But I mean, you think about, like you said, how many hours. Now, I was, of course, a hyper go-getter, whatever. I had very few gen eds. I really did. I tested out of most of them. And I still was at school as a freshman, 14, 16-hour days, as a freshman, as a first semester freshman, 14 and 16-hour days.
Yep.
Without gen eds.
I think we can get rid of all gen eds. You're supposed to have had those in high school.
That's a whole other ball of wax. Let's not get into that.
I'm putting it out there. I did not need basic math. But I mean, for real, I didn't need another basic math class. I didn't need biology. I didn't need history. I didn't need all of those things. And they cut into all like, why? They did serve to get me out of the music building, which was super helpful to meet other people.
That's a good thing too. Yeah. But
they were a freaking waste of time. This is stuff you're supposed to have colored in high school. And then, well, you don't want to go down this, like, well, we cut those, replace those with something else. Like, okay, if I have science, how about the acoustics of physics, physics acoustics? There was a class on that. I didn't know. So after I'd had 2 semesters of biology, I never did use. It was useless. That would have been applicable, Be an extra semester of improv. That would have been helpful. Take out American history. I had that in high school, stuff like that. And this is going to be unpopular, but I think we don't have to have every semester you have to have a theory class. Just saying. I don't think so. I know it's unpopular and I don't care. That's my popular opinion. Because you have it every semester. You're in grad school too. And I'll tell you that I don't need most of it. There's a lot of other classes I need. So, but anyway, that's another tangent.
Yeah.
I stand by.
And and that's fine, because a lot of people are going to disagree, and then a lot of people are going to say, well, we need the theory, we don't need the history. A lot of people are going to say we need this, we don't need that. There's really, like I said, very few things that I can think of across the board that I don't think we needed as much of as I was forced to take. But with those other arguments, even if I didn't like I didn't need basic theory, but I had to take it. Fine. I'm not going to argue against that. I'm not here to make that argument. But yeah, it's hard to tell what to cut. And I think a 5-year undergrad really would take a lot of the load off. This is my personal opinion. It's not going to be popular. A lot of the scholarships won't cover it. But I think for sanity's sake, that would be one of my go-tos. But since that's all theoretical, and we're here to try to talk as much practical as we can.
I had a bunch of vocal classes I don't think I needed either. I had vocal lessons in high school. I didn't need vocal classes. Have they served me? No. Why do they have those? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, how does that get back to back to our previous,
right. Well, it becomes on the individual to kind of make that decision, right? Understand that there's going to be sacrifices you have to make. Understand that you are in a field where you are going to be spending most of your time doing that. But I mean, if you look at the most healthy and successful long-term performers and most of the most healthy and successful long-term educators, the people at the top, most of them have a hobby that does not relate to music at all. Like 0% music related. It gives them something else to identify with. And it's something that they're doing just for them. you know, and we talk about, a lot of people talk about like Brene Brown, who I adore. And she talks about, you know, you need to, doesn't matter what your field is, you need to do something just for you. You need to do something creative because it's play. And we lose that. We start losing our identities. We start getting in this really nasty funk, you know. Well, just because we're creative and we have our own version of play doesn't mean that we don't need to do something else outside of that, you know. And that's just a tiny step in knowing where your own boundaries are, knowing what you're willing to sacrifice, and having something that you're willing to actually protect for yourself. You won't sacrifice that thing because you need it, you know. I mean, I'll be honest, for instance, I'm living in Florida. I would not choose to live like, you know, I was happy in Arizona. I'm born and raised there. I liked being there. That was my home. I'm a desert person, you know, like.
Oh, and you live in Florida?
Yeah, biologically, I'm a desert person. I was, and then being born, yeah, I'm meant to be in a desert, but at least I'm still in the heat. Don't put me in the cold. I can handle a little humidity. Don't, anyway, but you know, it's that like, you get to be my age, and it's not entirely about where I am in my field versus where I thought I'd be, but it's just look at all of the sacrifices, all the things that I wanted that I gave up. And where do we draw that line? You know? And it took me until this old to start being like, no, this is a firm line. I'm not giving this up. This is too important to give up, you know?
For people who don't know what we're referencing, like what can you give us some like examples? What kind of
things that have been sacrificed?
Yeah, either you or somebody you know, or you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, like I said, choice and place of living.
Yeah, sure.
That's, yeah, straight up. But a lot of people I've seen, and me personally in the past, health was sacrificed, sleep was sacrificed, personal life was sacrificed. I mean, most of my previous attempts at dating and relationships were not as invested as I should have been emotionally, because I couldn't, because I was too invested in my field. And I hate to say that, but that's just the truth. You know? It's fine because I found the right person to invest in, but you know, it's not something I'm proud of. My health definitely took a backseat. Definitely. And I see that over and over and over again. Oh, I'm only going to sleep 6 hours tonight because I need to practice. How effective do you think that practice is going to be?
I tell you know, well, in less than, it was 8, now it's 9 hours. Forget it. I don't.
No. Well, and then sleep debt. You think about sleep debt. If you guys don't know what sleep debt is, look into it. But like, if you get less than your required amount of sleep, you owe your body, and your body is keeping track. And at some point, you are going to shut down, and it is not going to be pretty. And this is, I was teaching a high school summer clarinet choir. And it was like, oh, they were so psyched. It was their last day at the camp, and they'd been staying here for 2 weeks. It was their last day at camp before their big performance the next day. And I said, all right, I'm not going to talk down to you. I need you guys to understand that my next statement is me talking to my younger self, okay? Things that I wish I had done. This is not a, you're so young, you need to hear this thing. This is a, I wish I had done this, and you are in a position to do something about it, you know? And I explained sleep debt, and I said, you know, you're going to be tempted to stay up and hang out with your friends and whatever. And I said, have fun, do it. Do it while you're young, that's great. Don't sacrifice your sleep to do it. Like, get your sleep now, because the longer you can put off that sleep debt and the quicker you pay it off, the healthier you're going to be and the more you're going to be able to do. And man, I wish I had done that, because, you know, you get older and it gets harder and harder to not recover, but just you think about there's more wiggle room when you're younger in terms of life. Life is a little bit less forgiving when you're younger, and the older you get, the less forgiving it gets. And so that's what makes it harder to pay back, in my opinion. Not like, oh, I'm old and I can't, whatever, and I'm just too old. No, it's that life is too unforgiving, and there are things that I cannot miss anymore, or the consequences are going to be severe. Yeah, but physical, I mean, not just sleep, but like well, yeah, my arm hurts, or yeah, my neck hurts, or yeah, my jaw hurts, but you know what? I've got a concert, or I've got a recital, and it's like next week.
Mhm.
Okay, but there's going to be another concert in a month. There's going to be another recital in 2 weeks. Are you really going to force that practice now for this thing, knowing the domino effect it's going to have down the line?
Yeah. So I think this kind of comes back to not just boundaries, like knowing, because I'm thinking about this not just in terms of when you're in school, but as an adult in the real
Yeah.
world. I mean, you know, like
Yeah.
learning what your personal boundaries are, where are learning how to enforce them, because you can't tell the band director, no, I'm not coming up to rehearsal. I need a mental health day. That is not
No.
that it does not. No. But I mean, you do learn that. You know, if you don't learn that,
Right.
then you become an adult who's in this is a really demanding field, no matter if you are classical, if you are rock, if you are country, if you are touring session, if you're stage, if you're whatever your you know, what if you're an audio engineer and you've just got a deadline and you got to mix this thing? I mean, I'm talking to my client who's an audio engineer, and she's like, yeah, this person paid me big bucks, I got to mix this thing, it's a Christmas album. I'm like, Christmas? What? She's like, burning the midnight oil, right? So it's, you know, learning about those boundaries. What are my boundaries? What can I enforce? What is, you know, but I don't think we're not really prepared to know when it's okay to say no.
Right.
And in college, I didn't say no to anything. I was terrified of like letting anybody down or saying no, you know, and that spilled over into adulthood where I took on gigs I should not have, played things. For example, there was a recent gig that I said yes to. I really didn't want to go. I didn't want to play. I knew I wasn't going to get paid. It was a free thing, and I'm not interested in spending how many hours of rehearsal plus this thing plus. And then I was like, okay, you should go. I said yes anyway, and I was resentful about it. And then I went and I had an amazing time. I met all these great people, like that, which is why I went. I was like, okay, on one hand, you should say no. On the other hand, they'll never call you again. But it's not paid. Blah 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 blah. The upsides. Why do I need to go? Well, I need to go. I got to get out of the house. I haven't played with an orchestra in forever. I need to. Whatever, you know. So it's like learning. Learning when is it okay to say yes or no.
Yeah, but that also, I mean, to be clear, because we're talking about when to say no, and I know we've talked about this before, but you're saying, well, I need to play with an orchestra. I'm interpreting that not just as a like, well, I haven't done it, so I need to, but as a you personally for yourself needed to. That is very different. That's a very different thing, you know. That's when it's worth it, is like, I mean, same thing with, you know, my physical health, and it's like, man, it's been rough to get to the gym. Not gonna lie, I've been going through a lot. I know I've talked to you about this, but if you guys don't know, I've been going through a lot. I'm not gonna get into details, but it's just been one thing after another for months. And I went from regularly 3 days a week lifting plus about 2 days a week cardio and, you know, meditation, recovery, that sort of work. And now it was, I mean, the last couple months have been one workout a week, sometimes one workout every 2. That's not normal, you know. And so we get into like this week and last week and whatever, and it's just been so hard. And it was one of those like, you know what? I don't care what I do, but I deserve to go. Absolutely. I deserve to go. I don't care if all I do is put on one song and do my little like march with a weight around my waist kind of thing, or just one sandbag carry, or just like one set of bicep, something, do something. For a lot of last week, that was, I took a walk. It was a 30-minute slow walk in the neighborhood. I moved. And the important thing to me was I am still making space. As terrible as my current situation is, I'm still making space to take care of myself.
Yes.
That's my boundary. You know, that is like, because it was for years, you don't need that much sleep. It was hard for me to say, I can't eat that if I was in a social setting.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a long time, there were a lot of problems with having a special diet. There still are, but it's become less and less problematic. People are more accepting now than they were 5-10 years ago of special diets.
Yeah.
You used to be told things like, just eat the, just eat the blah, 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 like, just eat it. Like, well, I feel terrible when I do.
Yeah.
And they look at you like, well, why are you depriving yourself? I'm like, no, I'm not depriving myself. I'm taking care of myself. I feel
Right.
good doing this, and I understand that you feel good eating that thing, but
Yeah.
I spent too much of my time just like, well, I only have 10 minutes between classes. So that is exactly enough time because there's no line at the Dunkin' Donuts for me to go get a bagel. You know, the number of bagel dinners I had between teaching and rehearsals during my doctorate is insane. And
I understand.
I was not good at the end of that,
Yeah.
But that's the sort of thing that I see other people, like especially students right now, I see them sacrificing is like, it's okay for you to not practice that 1 extra hour today and to
Yeah.
take that to sleep instead. It's okay for you to take 30 minutes and sit down and eat a hot meal. You don't need to eat a meal while you're walking. You don't need to have a vending machine dinner.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's okay. It's okay to be like, instead of staying up crazy late to do this one assignment perfectly, do it a little bit less than perfect and submit it the next morning. I mean, I see in my own class right now, and I'm going to sell them out a little bit here, but I'm not mad. I'm not mad about it. I see the further we get in the semester, the fewer submissions I'm getting before the deadline, like days before, and it's now
Sure.
like the morning of, and I'm like, I'm not even mad. You guys did the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
You did it.
You did it,
But
and I hope that you took that time to take care of yourself instead of stressing out about my class,
Exactly. Because if you think about it, at some point you get the law of diminishing returns. This is why the whole thing about practicing a certain amount of arbitrary hours is arbitrary. Yeah. Especially my well, I'm telling you how many hours I had as a senior. And I was taking like 24 hours or something my sophomore year. I had a vocal scholarship I auditioned for just for fun, because I thought it was supposed to, I had a total breakdown and I had to give it up and give up the scholarship, the vocal stuff, because I thought I was supposed to. And my professor was like, no, though the reason you have so few hours, you're supposed to be practicing those other hours. You should be practicing 4 hours a day. And I was like, 4 hours a day? What? And is nonsense. How about teaching me more efficient practice? Teaching me that mental practice is just as valuable, instead of just, well, you should be listening to music. You should be listening an hour a day to music. Why? What am I getting out of it? What's the point? Well, mental practice. What am I? Okay. What? Give me a point for this. Teach me at it. Don't give me a timeline. I don't give my students, you should practice X hours. I don't care. I want to have this result by the next lesson. You need to be able to play this like this. And if you don't, bring in your questions, and that's what we're going to discuss. Or like I'll teach like how Ava taught me, was basically, you will have these memorized. I don't know when you play them, but you will have them memorized. See, now that does not give you a certain arbitrary number of hours, right? So, you have those diminishing law of returns as you get older and you are now in the professional world. What those sacrifices, when you sacrifice your sleep, now you are having to consume more caffeine. Then you can't sleep. Now you're having to take pills, or maybe you're abusing alcohol, or maybe you're using drugs because you're stressed out, or maybe this. And when it all comes back to, and then you get so far down that path, you can't figure out how you got there, and you can't see a way out. Right. It's all to serve the gig, because you can never say no to a gig. They won't call you again. You're not responsible. You don't know if they're, how about it like this? Like, well, why don't you just tell everybody you're too booked up? Right. Okay? Now, you can't take that to the extreme, because then you'll never get any gigs. But if you just say that, it's not that you're not responsible. It's that and demand. Exactly that. It's like, okay,
you're that much in demand. That's a good thing to be, you know?
Yeah.
And I do want to, while we're on that topic of how many hours to practice per day, before we get too far, I don't want to hear from somebody else, oh, well, you two are just blah, 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 right? Okay, we all know the name Pablo Casals. Yeah, cellist, majorly famous cellist. This book here, by the way, Just Play Naturally, Vivian Mackey, Conversations with Vivian Mackey, interview. Vivian Mackey, Scottish cellist, studied with Pablo Casals. Aside from, he was very much a proponent of, like, I think her first year of studying with him, or first semester, it took her about a year to learn one piece and learn it right. He didn't care. He's like, let's do it right. That's fine. The second year, she learned them faster because she'd already laid the foundation for that. And I can't remember exactly where it was. I wish I could. But she was talking about, like, she's asking him, how much are you expecting me to practice per day? And she's early 20s at the oldest, early 20s at the time of her studying with Casals. And she's like, well, maybe he's expecting me to be practicing, like, 5-6 hours a day, because she's doing nothing else while she's there. She's in, like, the middle of nowhere, France, and all she's doing is lessons with Casals once a week, and then, like, listening work. That's it. And so she asked him, thinking, like, I mean, for string players too, I know string players are expected to play a lot, wind players is like 3 or 4 is what is pushed. And I think that honestly might be too much for some people versus efficiency. But
I think brass is like 2 or 3, because physically you can't play long.
Yeah. But I've heard string players be told that they should be playing, minimum 4, often 6 hours a day. What Casals said to her, I'm paraphrasing here because I can't find the page, was something like, you're young and strong. I think 2.5 to maybe 3 hours tops is good. Because she's young and strong, only 2.5 to 3 hours daily. And that's all she's doing. She's not in ensembles. She's not, like, literally practice the cello, cook your food, do your laundry. And he only expected 2.5 to 3 hours per day because her practicing was expected to be that focused and intense.
And efficient.
She was, like, super, super tuned in. And that's how she became so good. And that's why Casals was so good,
Yeah, we could go down a pedagogy field day here, but I think this is the perfect time for us to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back.
Hey there. My name is Dr. Garrett Hope. I am a composer, coach, podcaster, and speaker. I've been focused on building my music business since 2014 and helping others build theirs since 2015. I want to tell you about the 2nd annual Ultimate Music Business Summit we are organizing. It'll take place early January of 2022. There will be dozens of presentations with highly actionable content, all of it available to you so you can start your business, grow your business, and ultimately make more money. Because here's the deal. Unless you earn all of your income from an employer, you are a self-employed small business owner. And if you want to do more than survive, if you want to grow your audience, or if you want to impact more people, you have to think and act like a business owner. And that means this summit is for you. This summit will give you real-world, not theoretical, strategies you can implement immediately. You don't need to be stuck with fear or living in your failures. I promise you, with all the teachers lined up, you will get something you've never thought of before. Even though building a business is hard, no one is promising it's easy. It is possible. You just need the right tools and strategies. Tickets for this virtual event will go on sale soon. To be the first in line and to get more information about the summit, presenters, and more, go to musicsummit.biz. That's musicsummit.biz and add your email to the list.
So we're back, and Jen found the quote.
I did find the quote, and I did misquote it, so I'm glad I found the quote. So she's talking about, she was not watching the clock, and she was really only getting in, it was actually 3 to 3.5 hours. Only, but Her quote is, and that was while I had all day to practice in short bursts with rest in between. The practicing took 3.5 hours every day. I could not do more. Casals was beginning to give me so much to do, like all the scales and arpeggios and 4 octaves and so on, that I asked him, rather with my heart in my mouth, how many hours practice do you expect me to do? Because I was really only doing 3.5, and I thought maybe he's expecting me to do 8 or 9.
My gosh.
That's what she thought. And she says, so he looked me up and down, and then he said, I think you're young, you're strong, perhaps 3 to 3.5 hours in a day. And I found that to be a big surprise and a great relief. So she was expecting 8 or 9 hours of practice, which is more than I estimated, and she was doing still more practice, but 3 to 3.5 hours a day versus the 8 or 9 that she thought that he was expecting her to do, and which is, like we often hear 6 to 8 for string players.
Not just practicing, we're talking also about playing. So if you are in a band, if you're in ensembles, if you are in rehearsals and practicing, that's so many hours.
Yes.
Step away from the instrument, guys.
Yeah.
It can't be your whole life.
No. And that brings us to you were going to talk about the law of diminishing returns here, which is, it's applicable to the college crowd that I've been talking to so far, but it's also applicable to once you get into your professional field and once you're at that level,
Right, because I'm thinking of somebody in particular. It's a guitarist who's crazy good at craft, but all he does is practice. When he doesn't have so he's either taking these gigs down on Broadway, and so what he told me is that when he's on tour, he's just on tour. He's out, they're playing, they're doing their thing, and apparently you have a ton of time when you're on tour, which is nice. But he's practicing on the tour bus and whatnot, right? So when he's here, he's either at the gym or he's playing his instrument. He's playing his guitar. That's it. He can take these gigs where you'll do a single is like 4 hours is a show, like a break, which is insane.
That's nuts.
Oh, and by the way, you play for free on Broadway. You make tips. Don't get me started.
We'll leave that alone. We'll leave that alone. I'll let my eyebrow do the talking.
That's a Nashville thing. All you people moving to Nashville who play for free for exposure, stop it.
Stop it.
Okay. Anyway, so that's a single, and then a double is 2 of those. He would play a triple sometimes, and sometimes only 30 minutes between. What are you eating? You're not resting.
Right.
12 hours of playing, and then he might go home and practice for another 2 hours. Or even if you played a double, even if you played a single, you're playing all these songs, and then you go home and practice. That's 4 to 8 to 12 to 16 hours in one day. Do it again the next. Yeah. And if you're not playing for free, you're only playing for a couple $100. I'm sorry, a couple $100. What? And this is somebody who has been touring with some really big name people and is currently on the road with some big name people, if I told you who they were. So, I mean, he's good, and that's how he got good, but he's also in a crap ton of pain. He's going to the gym and not doing the right workout, and that's another long story. But I mean, so he's trying not to sacrifice his health, but he's also not willing to invest in it properly. Because it will take time to learn. It will take time to do something else, and this is his routine. You know what I'm saying? So what are you going to do? So if you're playing these shows and you don't have time to eat, you're going to eat whatever nasty bar food they give you, maybe. Unless you packed a sandwich or something, you don't have time to eat chicken breast and broccoli or whatever, right? You don't have time to make a cup of ramen noodles. You probably don't eat at all. And then what are you drinking? You might be drinking water. More than likely, people are buying these bands shots, and now you have alcohol, and now you haven't slept, and then you do it again tomorrow, next day, and then maybe you don't have a show, and so now you're playing a whole lot. And then what are you doing? Playing video games? Maybe nothing wrong with video games, but if you're in that posture, it's like, where's your hobby?
Right.
You beget the law of diminishing returns, because like I mentioned, you're going to start making up for those deficits, whether it's a sleep deficit or you have now more anxiety or you have this, that. You're going to try to self-medicate with all kinds of things. And I'm not just alcohol. You can self-medicate with a lot of other things, all kinds of addictions that are not healthy.
Television. I'm going to throw that one out there. Television,
Yeah.
video games are an addiction to, can be
Sure.
an addiction to. They're anything that you can do to numb what you are going through. It
Right.
doesn't have to look bad. That can be food, that can be drinks, of course, that can be
Definitely
TV,
food.
like I said, games. Cell phone games count too, by the way.
It could be TikTok. If you're
It could be TikTok.
oh my gosh, I've wasted so many.
The number of people I know who are addicted to Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And that is a rough one to be addicted to, because it is
Social
nothing
media.
but showing you either other people's anger or a false sensation of how successful everybody you know is except for you, because you're only putting your best up there.
We
And if you're
address
not
that
only,
everywhere.
oh yeah, and if you're not
Yeah.
only putting your best up there, then you're putting probably anger.
And then you apologize for it. You see people every once in a while. I'm sorry, I let that out. Like, really? When is this just a look at me, I'm perfect show? But yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, knowing what your addictions are, and because we all have them. I'm sorry. There's nobody who doesn't have a numbing device. That's part of being human. But knowing what they are, knowing how you're using them, and recognizing that can be a major step in getting out of that pattern. I know we talked about in our eating disorders one, like I said, I've put on weight. It's obvious on camera. It's less obvious than it should be, quite frankly. It's a lot. But that's because one of my go-tos, I have two modes when I get stressed with food. Eating everything,
Or
just
eating
to cope,
nothing.
or eating nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've recently gone from one extreme to the other, and
Yep.
here I am. But knowing that that's a thing, and understanding like, hey, I don't mind if I'm eating things I shouldn't be for enjoyment. That's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I'm eating it to cope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can only do that for so long.
Yeah.
I don't feel good. I can tell I don't feel good. So how long am I going to keep torturing myself, right?
Yeah.
Versus the little bit of struggle to get back into like, well, I am not eating sugars now for like exactly 2 days, you know? But I feel better. Like, does it suck? A little bit. But the trade-off is so much better,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Excuse me. So when you get to this point and you realize I would turn this around because your music is going to suffer from this.
Yes.
Because you're stressed out about it. So starting to cope with that, and then learning what your boundaries are. Where can I say no? Where does saying no bring me more joy and more relief than more stress? Because there is some of both of that. If you say no to a gig that you really didn't want to play, but like in my instance, I needed to do it and I'm glad I did it, but I didn't want to. I was thinking on principle, I can't. Whatever. Okay, so you weigh your options and you think about, okay, where can I start enforcing my boundaries? Suddenly you don't feel stressed to turn to these other things.
Right.
But you don't have to be a slave to your profession. You don't, being a workaholic, you don't have to be. And you need some good people to drag you out of that. So you're not going to make other friends that are not musicians if you don't go hang out where non-musicians are.
Right.
Dancing class or a fencing class or a pottery class or a painting class or an archery class or go horseback riding or something. I mean,
find something you like to do and you'll meet other people. And quite frankly, if you want to get people into what we do who are not into what we do, you being out there makes what we do relatable. Like, I mean, the number of people when they find out that I'm a musician, the number of people in just a gym setting, when they find out that I'm a musician, they just kind of double take. They're like, you're what? Because they expect musicians to be artsy all the time and like way out there and like piecing it,
And you play what? Yeah.
I know. And don't get me wrong. I know I'm out there and I'm fine with that. But like, but it makes the field more relatable to people who think that you have to be a certain level of highbrow and snooty, which is nuts. But like, because I mean, really, anyway, we'll leave that alone. But it makes makes what you do more relatable. It gets you involved in things that you already care about. You get an outside perspective with people who are not going to put that kind of pressure on you.
Yeah.
And I'd say if you're going to develop a new hobby, which I would do if you don't have one, That is a date that goes in your planner, the same as a rehearsal. You do not, no, I'm busy from that time. No, that is not compromisable. That is not like, oh, well, it's just no.
Same to yourself, not compromisable. You say no to other people, but you also say, no, well, I just need to answer these emails. No,
no.
Do your thing. It can wait.
Right.
It can wait.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's been so tempting. I have exactly 3 windows a week to lift right now because it's that busy. And those have been compromised because it's gotten crazy, crazy busy, like I talked about. But
Sure.
It is so easy to go, man, I really need to make a quick grocery run. I'll just run up the street. No, you wouldn't skip out on a student. You wouldn't skip out on work. You wouldn't skip out on a rehearsal. You're not skipping out on this, you know? It's easier for me to justify too, because it's like, well, this is part of what I do. I need to have this experience in order to be able to teach it. But I would not compromise that even if that's not what I was doing, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, guys, leave a message in the comments on what is your hobby? What is your thing?
Please.
Like, who flies drones? Who does model trains? What's your thing? Like, are you period sewing? I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of them. Are you a chef in your spare time?
Uh-huh.
Are you an event? Do you like to throw parties for other people? Are you into floristry? That's not a word, is it?
Floral arranging.
It is. Or forestry. Or hiking. I don't know. Boating.
Right.
What's a boat?
Right.
What's your thing? Like, give us ideas, and then we can share those ideas.
Yeah.
And then we'll find some new ones. I'm always on the hunt for a new hobby.
You know, I've got a couple on my list that I'm like, man, if my schedule ever calms down, I'm going to try this. You know?
Right. You heard what you just said. If your schedule calms down. Ooh.
But right now, I'm protecting what I care most about.
Right now,
I've got family time.
We're not talking about right now.
I've got family time, including my little tribe of friends. I've got family time, and I've got me time.
Good.
That's all I can protect right now, but that's the stuff I'm not willing to compromise on.
Good.
So do yourself a favor, do that. If you are doing that, let us know in the comments. Let us know what you're doing.
Yep.
And
Thanks,
I think
guys.
that's what we got for today.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll
See you next time.